AJ Styles P is your man, Lorenzo Pierce. This is a locker room review of The Iron Claw. The Iron Claw is a 2023 film, right? 2023 film, written and directed by Sean Durkin. This movie is about the beloved Von Erich family, right? Um, the Von Erich family was a very prominent, and still is, but in the late 70s, early 80s, the Von Erichs were a very prominent Texas wrestling dynasty. As we know, this family is headed up by one Fritz Von Erich, who back in the day had a gimmick where he was a Nazi. That was his in-ring gimmick, right? And so many things come to mind when I think about foreign heels in wrestling, or either just like racist heels, right? Like I think about Glow, Zora the Destroyer. I think about the Godwins in WWF and in Jim Crockett back in the day. Who, what way more subtle. They did things to get heat. Me and my family was a part of that at a WWF house show. We can save that for another day, even though that story has been told in other places and other iterations. But that's what Fritz Von Erich was. He changed his name to Von Erich, right? Like this was really a thing that he was committed to. But after a while, he wasn't a wrestler anymore, right? As the story goes. And so the Von Erich family pretty much consisted of brothers Kevin, Kerry, David, Chris, and Mike Von Erich. Chris Von Erich was not included in this film as a character. Kerry, Kevin, and David and Mike is. And Zac Efron, who we're very familiar with, stars as Kevin Von Erich. Jeremy Allen White from The Bear stars as Kerry Von Erich. Harris Dickinson stars as David Von Erich. Very, very, very great job by him. And Stanley Simmons stars as Mike Von Erich, who in the credits is listed as the youngest son, even though Chris was the youngest son. And there was older brother Jackie Von Erich, who passed due to drowning when Kevin was younger. Now this family has been through its fair share of tragedies. It's not even a fair share; it's very unfair, in fact. We're gonna get into a little bit of that, but this film also has a great supporting cast. One who we know as MJF, one who I call Maxwell Jacob Freeman, is also in this film, makes an appearance as Lance Von Erich. He's a stand-in for him. And that was a story that came about, I believe, when folks wanted to see more from the Von Erichs after certain tragedies were taking place, and he would just kind of put out there as a relative of the Von Erichs, but it wasn't really a thing. Again, we got a great supporting cast here. Casey Louis Carragino as Bruder Brosy. Really great job by him. Kevin Anton as Harley Race. Hopefully we get into a little bit of that in a few minutes. Aaron Dean Eisenberg as Ric Flair. We could talk. Chavo Guerrero Jr. as the Sheik, right? Just like, and Chavo has done work on Glow as well. As previously mentioned, Ryan Nemeth, the brother of Nick Nemeth, betterly known as Dolph Ziggler to most folks who watch wrestling. Gino Hernandez in this film. Also want to give a shout out to Michael J. Harney as Bill Mercer. Really great job in this film. I believe he plays on Orange is the New Black, just a true thespian. Mara Tierney stars as Doris Von Erich, the wife of Fritz and the mother of the Von Erich brothers. Great job by this cast. Great job. And this was a long-term deal for Sean Durkin. He really wanted to make this film, and it was great to see him get it off of the ground. Now, about Jeremy Allen White's casting as Kerry Von Erich. Again, like I said, he stars in The Bear. We know him very well at this point. Kerry Von Erich, though, on the other hand, was a very tall man, very big in stature and physical stature. And as we know, as stated, this film does not include Chris Von Erich as a character. But I do believe artistically, Sean Durkin was able to take a bit of creative license and replicate some of Chris's thing, some of Chris's vibe into the story of Kerry Von Erich as it were to be portrayed to us. So Chris got kind of absorbed into the casting. One, I think, of Jeremy Allen White being a guy that was smaller, but Jeremy Allen White is a guy that I'm sure he trains and all of that good stuff. But yeah, Kerry Von Erich was, he was a WWE guy, Texas Tornado. We can get into all of that, which we will. This film presents a lot of different themes in a very subtle way: family, brotherhood, faith. They present it in subtle ways with telling us a lot about it visually, right? Because the script is very meticulous and careful. But when I'm looking at the screen, everything kind of like leaps off loudly, right? Like if that makes sense, right? Like, because we don't hear, like we don't see with our ears, right? But based on the relationship that we develop with film, hearing a certain piece of music, seeing a scene, seeing a certain shot, I believe that this film was done very meticulously to try to communicate certain things to us. Now, I'm going to try to get a few scenes off here, not too many. I hope, we're going to see. But long story short, getting back through it, the film starts out in the late 1950s, I believe. Fritz Von Erich is in the ring wrestling a match. He's working. He has a working night this night. The boys and Doris is there, and Doris is also pregnant. She's with child. He pummels the guy, right? He pummels the guy, gives him a mean iron claw, and it's a wrap, right? Fritz wins. The ring announcer announces it, and so then we see a conversation taking place between Fritz and his wife. Now, Kevin as a kid, I think, is there. And I think that's who that kid is supposed to be. He's supposed to be Kevin, right? Because Kevin is like the main character in the film. So the first line from one of the kids, who I believe is Kevin, says, "You crushed that guy, Pop." I believe that's Kevin. What ends up happening is Fritz and Doris have a conversation. Fritz had just purchased a new Cadillac for the family. He's attached it to their mobile home because they used to live in a trailer. That's where they used to live. You know what I mean? And a lot of folks back in that time did live in trailers, right? Kind of getting into the class aspect of these things now. And I also believe in this scene, David also says a few words. So he's like happy that the car is there and all of that good stuff. But Doris is kind of upset because it's like, this was a purchase, my guy. Like, you should be talking to me about this stuff. And Fritz basically buys this gift for the family as a pretense that, he's going to be a successful pro wrestler. And Doris is like, all right, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to put my trust in you. You know what I mean? It's kind of like a prayer somewhat takes place, and we just hope for the best. But we know that Fritz does not become a very prominent pro wrestler. He just doesn't. He becomes involved in world class championship wrestling in Dallas, as stated. Becomes, a part of that C-suite, if we can. But at this point in the film, we see a Kevin Von Erich waking up out of his sleep, getting ready to go train, and he's about to prepare for a match. And in fact, in this match, he's about to challenge for the Texas Heavyweight Championship. And to kind of get back to some of the themes that this film presents, right? The things that this film is talking about: family, brotherhood, tragedy. Some of the tragedy starts off just in the household when the family is with each other, right? When we think about tragedy, tragedy isn't just death. Tragedy could be something that's emotional. It could be something that someone says to you. We can apply that word in those other instances. I don't necessarily think that, we got to go around and labeling everything as tragic, as we sometimes do on the internet when things happen. And that's an actual like meme word that people like to use. When we think about memes, people are using memes as like visual examples of things or something. But like sometimes we use words as memes too. There's something I was just thinking about. But after Kevin wins the title, the Texas title, We see that there's a breakfast taking place. David is trying to get his life together in the morning a bit there. And we see the family just about to spend some time together and just be with one another and nourish themselves for the morning. Now, this might be like on a Sunday morning after, right? The match that Kev was in was probably on a Sunday. But yeah, it was great. It was a great start to the film. So I want to see if I can begin to start to get some of these scenes off. A24, YouTube, everybody, mess with me, man. I'm trying to do my thing here, man. I'm sorry, but capitalism must fall. So let's get into a few scenes here. So I want to share something with y'all from this film, if I can. We just hopefully gonna get right into it. So let's see what's up, y'all. So there we go. Dad's too tough on Mike, right? Dad is always tough on Mike. So I think that when we think about the brothers, the dynamic of the brothers, the athletes were definitely Kevin and Kerry. Now I think David found his way in based on certain skills he had. He was the promo. You dig what I'm saying? He was the one to eventually hop on the mic. And I believe that he also had the ring psychology as well. So he kind of brought a brainy aspect to the ring with his brothers. Mike was the artist. He wanted to play music. He wanted to, and granted, wrestlers are artists, right? But he was the guy that wanted to express himself in a different way. We see that in this film. Mike is a Rush fan, which at the time, late 70s, early 80s, if you listen to rock and roll, no matter where you were in the United States, if you were in North America, you probably listened to Rush, or you probably came across Rush. And we can get into a little bit more of that in a few. But Kev says, Mom, I think I need a little bit of help with my brother. And Mom says, that's between y'all. Y'all figure that out. Two examples of the mother and the father closing themselves off to their children while being available and while being there. But those two scenes back to back right next to each other, and just saying like the interpersonal details of certain people's life, like Mike and like David. Very interesting family with, I'm sure a certain amount of values. But very, very interesting family for sure. As the film goes on, we see that the Von Erichs are in church. They go to a church service. The Von Erichs, I believe, were Catholics, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to have to double check on that. I think there were certain things from this script that told me that they was Catholic. Because I was raised Catholic, and I think that in the scene, like the hymn that I'm hearing would be heard in the Catholic or like Anglican church. I'm not sure if they're actually Methodists. Right now, Fritz attended SMU. He attended Southern Methodist University. So did Kerry, as an athlete. But I have to figure that out, right? The whole relationship, But if they were in fact Catholics and like a Texan family, that's a very interesting double whammy. Especially for this family that went through all of these things. But definitely a part of the Christian church nonetheless. And again, some of the same issues and things can come up. Right. Now, at this point in the film, right after they are pretty much like right after they leave church, we see them, another one of those subtle parts of the film. We see David in the garage rehearsing his music. The boys, David and Kevin, roll up on him. They about to go chill down at one of the local lakes, probably down there. And right after that, we get a very interesting scene with my guy who plays Kevin Von Erich, Zac Efron. And then we also see my other guy, Michael J. Harney, playing Bill Mercer. I think it's the first time we see him in the film. He's interviewing Kev, and Kev is about to do a promo. He's about to shoot a promo for World Class TV with his new NWA Texas title. we can see that Kevin is having trouble with completing his task for this particular episode, which is to deliver a promo as NWA Texas champion. Um, you know, and talk a little bit of work about some of these people. So Kevin's talking to Bill and he's talking to Gino. Gino and Bruiser Brody were a tag team. And at this point, it's kind of a mystery who the partner for Kevin is going to be. And this goes back to the way that they do this film. Sean Durkin does this film as if like us as wrestling fans, like he's booking things and then revealing them to us, right? So we know that this is a film about a predetermined thing. But at the same time, as movie watchers and watchers of wrestling, he's doing bookings in retrospect and presenting them in his way. So I'm pretty sure at the start of this, you know, in this world that Sean has built for us as like late 1970s Dallas, all of that good stuff. I'm pretty sure before they shot this that David was in fact the mystery partner, and everybody knew it. Everybody at the production knew it. They like he's right there on set, right? But the way that they reveal this to us is by having Kev like struggle with it, but then like David kind of like tease him a bit when he's going through his promo. And it's really funny the way Zac Efron, it's a really great job by Zac Efron in this film. Great job. But the subtle comedic parts are really just like he really just kills them. And it's almost like he really like takes on the things about Kevin Von Erich, right? At that time, not being the best promo and all of that good stuff. And just the way he takes on Kev's persona. You know what I mean? I got something for you, boy, oh boy, Gino. Like, you know, and it's just like he's struggling. He's struggling. David is on set. He walks by. He's eating a snack. And he's making a joke out of the thing, right? He's just like, yo, this guy's like, you know, he's botching it. You know what I mean? He's bottling it. And so right here, this is like the introduction as David as being one of the strongest links in the Von Erich chain. Right. So they keep on trying to do these takes. David then takes a seat behind one of the cameras. And like I said, I'm pretty sure he knew that he was in this match with his brother. But we don't know that yet, right? And so at this point, we see that David is taking a liking to the wrestling thing. When we first saw the film, we saw David kind of fooling around as we saw just then. But we get one of my most interesting parts of the whole film right before we get to the match with Gino and Bruiser. One of the things that A24 does so well is their music. And this is one of the songs that was used in the trailer, and it's Don't Feel the Reaper by the Blue Oyster Cult. And I really like, this is one of the sounds of that time, right? Like this is one of the songs I feel like on that, like, not necessarily the most mainstream top of the pops way, but like this was one of them jams, you know what I mean? Like for the times, and just the way they shoot this a bit more like mid aerial, and you kind of, you know, folks are coming into the Sportatorium. So we're definitely going to try to get this one off because this is one of the magnus opus, like montages of the whole film. I really love this next part. So we're going to try to get this next scene off. We're going to listen to a little bit of Blue Oyster Cult while we look at some of the beautiful pictures from the Iron Claw. Thank y'all so much for bearing with us this evening. Let's take. Now that was the shit. That was the shit, man. Let's give it up for our homie, man. Our homie Kevin Anton one time. Please give it up for the guy because this was probably one of the best, like, short, quick promo portrayals, like from like an actor that's ever done like a pro wrestling bit or promo or anything. For people who don't do Stone Cold and Hulk Hogan and Jake the Snake, like this was the one. This was one of them ones. Harley Race. I just love that. I love it. I love it. So we see in this next scene, Harley gets up out of there. Right? Match ends in a DQ. Harley gets up out of there. and we see one Dave Von Erich hop on the mic. He hop on the mic, and not for nothing, but Harley was taking it to Kevin this match. The suplex on the slab and all that goofy shit, like madness. But Harley gets out of there, and David cuts an amazing promo on Harley Race post-match. Amazing. And now we see that David is the promo of the brothers. Now it's like, oh shit. Now we know about that promo. It can get you to a title. It can get you to it can get you to some things. You know what I mean? But at this time, you know, Kev was still NWA Texas champion, right? He didn't have the 10 pounds yet. Harley still had that. And we would see later on they were challenging for the trio titles against the fabulous Freebirds, Hall of Famers, all-timers. After Dave cuts the scathing promo on Harley, we see that Fritz, Dave, and Kev are all in the locker room, and they having quite a moment with each other. We kind of seeing the wheels in Fritz's head turn scene by scene. Every time something happens with the brothers, and then the wheels start turning, right? And at some point before I think Fritz came in, he says, "You should have let me talk." That's what he said to Dave. And it's like, no matter, he had the opportunity to talk, but he know that Dave killed that shit. And I think right here, this is where Kev started to feel maybe a bit encroached upon. Who knows, right? And we could fall out of this, right? I'm sure there's plenty of Kevin Von Erich promos out there that talk about a lot. But after this conversation, Kev seems kind of distraught about certain things. Dave just thought he was helping, but it seems to be that Dave is like taking away some of the shine or some of the attention. Now, Kev won this match, right? But he didn't win the title because of the DQ. After this scene, we enter one Kerry Von Erich training for the Olympics. Now, this is where the film starts to get a bit political, and this is what I like about this film, is that, you know, it's wrestling and all that, but we got to include a little bit about the political times here. As we know, Kevin Von Erich was scheduled to be an Olympian. I believe at the Summer Games. As we know, 1980 was a year that had both Summer and Winter Olympic Games. But for the games that Kerry were going to participate in, Jimmy Carter, at that time, who was president, for the Winter Games, I believe, and then you had Reagan for the other ones. So that's why we get USA in the winter. We get USA in the winter. I'm sorry, we get USA in the Winter Olympics, folks, because of the whole USA Soviet thing, right? They actually beat them later on that year when Ronald Reagan was president. But earlier in the year, when Jimmy Carter was president, Kerry Von Erich was going to be a track and field star for Team USA. President Jimmy Carter at the time, who was serving his first term, said that Team USA would not be reporting to the Winter Games. And they show this scene, they show the announcement and the family watching it. Very devastating blow to the family, I'm sure. Very devastating blow to Kerry. Now, for me, one of the most impactful shots of this whole film is two of them. It's really three, right? So I'm going to start with one, and then I'm going to pause, and we're going to come right back. But, like, Jeremy Allen White here shines by not even saying anything. We first get the shot of Fritz looking at the TV, then we get a shot of him. But let's start with the shot of Jeremy as Kerry on the bus while the announcement is being made by then President Jimmy Carter.
Ours will not go.
This shot right here is one of the most important shots of the film. One of the most important shots of the film, because for me, it's showing Kerry in a certain light Jeremy Allen White has a certain face. I think that his face isn't too off expression-wise from Carey. Not to say that he looks like him, but when the two gentlemen, as it were, with Carey, certain muscles in their face contracting when an emotion is when an emotion is expressed and things of that nature. The worrisome look that he had on that bus. I look at a lot of pictures of Carey Von Erich often, and I always look at the eyes, and I don't know. It just looks like Jeremy has been doing his work. So I wanted, big shout out to him for his role as Carey. The most subtle role in the film, he gives us the least amount of script lines out of any brother, I believe. To double check that for sure. Don't put that in concrete, but I believe that's what the case is for a role of this magnitude, right? And to be basically like a star supporter in the film. So this is a very, very impactful scene to me. Him being on the bus, him looking worried, like what's next, right? And especially like Jeremy's hair, too, the way he grows his hair out, definitely favors Carey. Blue eyes, good casting at the end of the day. And so at this point, we get Carey coming home. He hugs mom. He's playing football with the brothers. Pam comes over for a little luncheon with the family, and they have a conversation about a few things, right? They're talking about David and his music. Well, first they're talking about the wrestling at first, right? And Carey is saying, yeah, like you put a whooping on Harley, bro, like good work, da-da-da. David ends up saying something about the camera angles, which is very important. I'm not going to play that part, but he says something very important, like, yeah, like the camera angles was dope, wasn't they? Like that was, and Fritz is like, fuck is you talking about camera angles? We talking about camera angles. We talking about wrestling. Back to my point earlier about how wrestlers are artists, but folks like Carey, guys of his day didn't recognize wrestling as such, right? And when we're looking at wrestling as viewers, the present day, I know I talk about it. Like I hope y'all do too. Like the different shots we talked about, Kevin Dunn and his transitions and all of that. Like so, most of us pay attention to that. But I'm like, yeah, like them camera angles, like that could have been David's career in pro wrestling if he wanted to get into the cinematography of it and capturing it for television or whatever. But more traditionally, artist mind at that time, he picked up an acoustic guitar. He was a man and all that good stuff. He said, we ain't talking about no camera angles, we talking about wrestling, right? But at some point, a couple words later, the mom, Doris, makes a statement like, yo, like you kind of like an artist too. Like you originally went to SMU for clarinet, but you ended up like wrestling and doing football and all of that. Like you really an artist too, but you ain't really want to fuck with that. Right. And I think this is a referendum on masculinity, especially 20th century masculinity and white men in Texas in the 70s. You know what I mean? Like, so, we ain't got to go too much. We ain't got to talk about too much there. Right. But that's that when it comes to that. But the conversation ends with David talking about a gig, but they don't want him to go to the gig. Right. Even though the gig is going to be with some older kids and all of that, they said they'll chaperone him and all that. They said, no, he's not going. He's not going. He's not going. But in the film, right, after the luncheon and everything, they sneak out to the gig, right? And we hear the song that we're hearing the song that Chris, I'll do this all the time, y'all. It's like they're my kids. We're hearing the song that David has been rehearsing. We're hearing him do that song with his bandmates live. Now, at this point in the film, right? At this point in the film, I believe that it's like the turning point. We're starting to get to the more human, emotional, blah, blah, blah side. We know that this is a wrestling movie. We know everything that's going on. Let's get into some real human stuff, right? So David is performing a song, and I believe the title of the song is Live That Way. Very beautiful, beautiful, beautiful ballad. Amazing riffs. We catch in the party Carey Von Erich doing a keg stand. He does a keg stand and then he takes his shirt off while Pam and Kev have a conversation. And I guess they were trying to tell us that Kev was you know, sort of like the wild child out of the guys, right? I think that's what Sean and his producers were trying to tell us here. And there's a few other parts in this film where we kind of get that idea, right? And we're about to come up on that in a few. But it's something in the foreground when it comes to Carrie with that keg stand. We then see that Kev and Pam have an intimate moment together in the car. And at this point, we kind of get back to a little bit of the wrestling things. Harley Race has lost to Ric Flair as NWA World Champion. Ric Flair now has the 10 pounds of gold. It's going down, right? Going back to those wheels turning, right? Fritz is watching this on television. The wheels are starting to turn. He goes out to Carrie in the ranch. And he says, I would never wish wrestling on any of you. He says, I will never wish wrestling on any of you. But I see what's going on. You not in the Olympics. Your brother's over there. Mm-hmm. And so I think that at this point, once that he was going to convince Carrie to start wrestling, he's way bigger than Kevin, right? We know that it's another guy in the ethers around this time that was in favors of guys that looked like this, right? So his wheels are turning. That's what Sean is trying. He's communicating with wrestling watchers and regular watchers at the same time, especially in these types of scenes, especially with Fritz Von Erich scenes in this film. He says, yes, Dad, I'll do this. I'll do this. I'm going to be a wrestler with my brothers. They all welcome him into the fold, right? They all welcome him into the fold. One day, Mama Doris, Mama Dottie, she go away. She about to go shopping to do her, Texas lady thing. Dave notices this and plugs in an amp. And he plays a song. And the song that he plays is one of the top 3 rock and roll songs of all time. That song is Tom Sawyer. And the band that sings that song is the Holy Triumvirate known as Rush. Geddy Lee, Alex Lifeson, Neil Peart, rest in peace to the greatest drummer of all time. Off their 1981 studio album, Moving Pictures. Moving Pictures is also top 3 rock and roll albums of all time. 7 songs. There's a good music album before the good music album, if you feel me. Okay. Tom Sawyer starts playing, and we about to watch some of it right now. Give me a second. Okay. Locker room lead. The hand that's going to bring the iron claw to you. You know what I mean? I don't want to get into too much. That's probably going to be the last John I probably show. I'm probably going to do a little Rick, and then that's it. And I hope I'm goody. I hope I'm good, man. We pre-recording this, by the way. I'm no stranger to the video essay, no stranger to the seminar or public speaking. But with all these other logistics, we just got to see how this thing going to land. But, we going to see. Locker room lead, man. We here. It's Monday. It's amazing, amazing, amazing film. A great band, a great song to capture the time. We see them enter the ring against the Fabulous Freebirds, who that night probably came into Freebird by Led Zeppelin. You know what I mean? Another great hit. Just another, oh my God. That Freebirds is crazy. I remember the Hall of Fame ceremony when they inducted the Freebirds. I believe it was the New Day who inducted them. PR. But, they started playing Freebird at a certain part of the video tribute. Oh, man. Oh, my gosh. I love this thing so much, y'all. I love it. Pro wrestling, right? Exit the Warrior. Today's Tom Sawyer. So we get him. We get Dave. We get Carrie doing their thing. Now, a few times in this scene, we see some party situations. We see some snorting going on. We see Carrie drink. It's looking like Carrie is participating in some type of death matches. It looked like some Zona 23 shit. Like, I don't know what the hell Carrie doing, bro. I try to do a lot of research. Like, did Carrie do death matches in Mexico or in El Paso? Like, what the fuck is Carrie And I'm gonna still continue to do my you know what I mean? But like, it's, and we're gonna get a little bit into Carrie right before we leave too. But we see that the boys they getting hot, right? It's get hot time. Shout out to the Almanac Show, my boy Dre and Julio. They getting hot. It's time to get hot, right? But we see some of the ills coming into play, some of the dope, some of the excess liquor, some of the probably not safest death matches, right? Deathmatch wrestling is at another place right now, right? But you know what I mean? Long story short, you know what I mean? He had the Crimson Mask and everything. So we move along, right? We move along. They defeat the Freebirds. Also, the guy that plays Terry Gordy, oh man, they need to get him for like the Terry Gordy biopic, because they really just surrounded them with, this was a great world. You know what I mean? That they shot this in, everything that they did, the way the Sportatorium looks, the way the titles, the ring gear, everything. But the guy that played Terry Gordy, man, we need to see about a Terry situation and recast him, and hopefully A24 does it. So, Von Erich family, 6-man champions, trios champs. Fritz Von Erich cuts a promo in the middle of the ring while they do the zoom, Okada great zoom in. And I really think that this is a really good scene too. I'm not going to show this one, but she taking some shots at Sam Mucknick and Jim Crockett and NWA folks. But the boys are having an inside conversation while he's cutting the promo. And it's kind of revealed that, you know, he's taking a liking to David as being the next NWA champion. And we could see after that, David, the pressure is on, right? David Von Erich was scheduled to fight at Parade of Champions against Ric Flair in Dallas, Texas. And he didn't. In the film, after this scene, we get the wedding scene. And it's a really good part of the film that they captured family, that they captured a moment of Kev just, you know, being a man and trying to come into his own. And there's a part during the reception where the family does a dance to another good song, traditionalist song down south. And it just goes with the whole thing. Thank God I'm a country boy, right? And the family does a little dance to it. Pam is doing it with the brothers. Pam is such a dude, bro. You know what I mean? But it's warm feelings you get, man. And then you see Fritz and Dottie having a conversation, and they doing a Fritz and Dottie thing. You know, Dottie kind of say something about her makeup, and it's a lot. You know what I mean? I ain't gonna really get too much into their relationship. It's subtle, but it is what it is, man. But family is family. Family is fair. Family is great. The wedding bells go off. Thank God I'm a country boy. Kev and Dave meet in the bathroom. He see Dave is hunched over the toilet, and he like, yo, this from a bug I got overseas. It's from a bug I got, bro. But they have a really intimate, close moment as brothers. And intimate just means closeness. It doesn't mean sex. Okay? For those of y'all on the internet that think that y'all know every definition to every word, because y'all like to meme words. Yeah, man. You know, so I'm not pausing that. Fuck y'all. They have an intimate moment at the brother's wedding, and you know, they just talking, man. You know what I mean? I know y'all saw the movie. Thank God I'm a country boy. Plays, boom. We see Kevin pulling up to the house, to the crib. And we find out that and y'all probably definitely saw this on the Dark Side of the Ring episode, how it happened is that, you know, Dave is passed now. He's gone. And I want to talk about a little bit how the Von Erich family were pushed into the public light by no fault of their own. Now, Fritz had a fault in that, but the boys, right? They were like some of the first, like they were like social media stars before social media, and not just for wrestling, but like Texas as a state being put on television in Texas. Texas is like its own country. Granted, those of us in the United States that live in, states, people that do live in the United States live elsewhere, like Puerto Rico, Hawaii is a state, Guam, but the territory. But those of us that have statehood, we have our own constitutions, right? And at any time, any governor can succeed. Not no, excuse me. Anytime any governor can challenge that, right? But it's never happened, right? It'll be a thing that probably won't happen for the next 50 years. A state trying to succeed this union. We'll see. I don't know under what pretenses or reasons. Texas people are their own thing. They're like their own, you know what I mean? And so for these young guys to have you put on television so early, thrusted into the spotlight in this way, not like as like, you dig what I'm saying, like square dancers or nothing like that. Like they straight up pro wrestlers from Texas, baby. Right. And so it's like, how do we make money? How do we do this? And this is how they was doing it, right? They put their kids on TV, they were wrestlers, and tragedy begins to befall, right? So at this stage, David, the Yellow Rose of Texas, is no longer with us. So we see the family trying to figure these things out. What is next? What are we going to do? Right? How do we accept this as a family? We see, a funeral procession taking place, a postcard finally reaching the home from Japan that Dave had sent. Just real hard hitting stuff. An aerial view of the funeral procession, right? And this makes me go back to the Dark Side of the Ring episode, right? Just to get into this, a little bit. Just the procession, right? And just everybody that came out is right here in this scene, right? You see the cemetery. This is and then the close up right here of Zach as Kev, man. This is a beautiful film. Very beautiful film. To move along, right? Move along, they bury our guy. Kev is distraught. Pam is trying to be with him, right? But Parade of Champions is still upon us, right? This is like Texas's WrestleMania. It's in May, right? This is a culminating show here at Dallas Cowboy Stadium, pre-Jerry World. Kerry won a challenge for the title now, too. Fuck you mean? Yeah, I want challenge. Yeah. I need that. They flip the coin. They do the old school country boy shit. They flip the coin. And it's Kerry, baby. And it's Kerry. Kerry's going to challenge for the NWA World title at Parade of Champions.
You don't have
Rose, NWA World Heavyweight Championship, Ric Flair versus Kevin Von Erich, man. You know what I mean? And so in this match, Ric Flair retains the title. Just like Harley. At this stage, I think that Kevin wants better opportunities. At this stage, Kerry has been called up to the WWF. Fritz tells his grandson to look at the TV, right? Your uncle on TV, right? It's making Kerry feel some type of way. Kerry comes home, brings home the IC title, WWF's IC title. But Kerry also seems to have like a chip on his shoulder, and also like he the new Fritz. Like the way that he even carrying himself with Fritz is like, like fuck out of here, nigga. Like, and y'all see the scene about the pistol and all of that. At this point, Kerry is very lonely, and he's getting lonely, and he doesn't know how to do this. There's a scene in this film where after we find out Kerry has died, where Kevin runs up on his dad and chokes him and said, "This is your fault." Right? We know at some stage in life, Fritz Von Erich developed brain cancer. He develops brain cancer, right? In the rest of this film, we see Kev trying to bargain with reality. We see Fritz like he doesn't know what's going on, right? The last time we see him, he looks very confused in this film after the confrontation between him and his son. Um, Now in the rest of this film, we just see Kev trying to pick up the pieces. He's trying to do all of the things he can to make the situation better. Make his family better, right? Just collect everything. And so I want to commend Kevin Von Erich as a man and as a human being. This film ends with a lot of hope and with a lot of beauty, with seeing the brothers like kind of reunited. Um, the sale of world class, all of that good stuff. But we know the ending of this story, and I want to give all of the grace and all of the everything I can to Kevin Von Erich as a man and a human for. I'm not thanking him for tragedy being a part of his life. I'm essentially saying that we as human beings that watch pro wrestling, watch movies, walk the face of the earth, can use Kevin Von Erich's story as an example of how to keep going. You know what I mean? In the face of just so much like madness and war and turmoil and murder and death, you know what I mean? Like how to just keep going. And so the reason why I really commend Kev the way I do is because when I saw that Dark Side of the Ring episode when it premiered that first season, I believe it was the first season, first or second. Um, I didn't know what to expect about the last Von Erich brother, right? That was a lot of homework that I feel like my brothers and them from their generation did, and I'm like, I'm gonna just watch the episode. Um, but seeing my guy like just he's smoking cigar and he was like peaceful and he live in Hawaii, and I'm like, okay, like this guy, because once people start moving like that, you know what I mean? It's like, all right, like you like really not in the United States. Like I said, Hawaii is a state. There's a reason why I was bringing it up for this moment. You know what I mean? But it's miles away. It's a state, but it's miles away on the Pacific Ocean. And I believe that was a good thing for Kev to do, eventually move way, way, way out west. I want to share something really quickly from that episode, if I may, from the Dark Side of the Ring. Um, Started, kind of talking about a bit about Fritz's problem and kind of where that sent Kev, because we didn't see or hear about none of this in the movie. The ending of that Dark Side of the Ring episode, right? Rest in peace to Chris Von Erich. Rest in peace to Kerry Von Erich. Rest in peace to Mike. Rest in peace to David. I love y'all. Thank y'all for what y'all did for us. But I want to get into this really quick scene from the Dark Side episode, right? Where and right, we got like 10 minutes left, y'all. Bear with me. We almost out of here. We almost up out of here. Locker Room Lead. Like, share, subscribe to your heart's content. We are living in a time in which we getting a lot of stories. We getting a lot of things that have like taken place, and people are retelling like how it went for them, what the effects of it was 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years, 15, right? Depending on these events and when they've happened. I like where Carrie goes by the end of the story, but just bear with me real quick, y'all, because this is one of the most profound, and I mean, just and it's not even about ego. I think it's just about life and like the way he says his family's name and having pride in where he's from and being from Texas. I just love this guy, man. Like, so we're gonna get into this real quick scene from Dark Side, and then something else, then we're gonna wrap up, y'all. Fuck Philo. It's like, no, fuck Philo. But that scene, that confessional from Kev, right? Your dad drew down on you. Thank y'all for bearing with. Your dad draws down on you, right? And like he going to the store. I love you, sir. I mean, excuse me. I love you, Kev. That came from being put on TV, man. That's that text. You know what I mean? So when he says, I came back in and I said, you know what I mean? And we prayed and it was a great day for Texas and Von Erich. Like, how do you not want to live life after seeing that? If you done been through some real shit and you see that man say that happened. My dad did this. I wanted to go to jail. They, Texas guns equals this. I walked into the store. They let me take it. I'm Kevin Von Erich. But the magnitude of what just happened. Kevin Von Erich, you are the man. You are him. You're really him. Everybody talk that him shit in this thing. Shout out to Mello. Shout out to everybody. Kevin Von Erich, man. Like he like a kayfabe hymns is cool, but Kevin Von Erich is a shoot him. Okay, I know that sounds crazy. Kevin Von Erich is really him in real life. Before we get up out of here, I want to pull up something else in memory of Kerry, and it's a bit of comedic relief, but it's still, but it's Kerry, and I want us to remember him in a special way, just like the rest of his brothers. It's a bit to do with where I'm from. It's a South Philadelphia story. We kind of talked about Kerry and his jackets, and he was the jacket guy. But let's get into a clip rather of Botchamania 484, one of my favorite programs when it comes to this thing on pro wrestling, as it should be yours too. Shout out to Matthew. Botchamania 484. Sometimes that guy Buckley, if y'all know who that is, pops up every now and then. He recently popped up on 484, which was 5 months ago, the episode. But he covers a snippet of a very important book that tells the history of Philadelphia pro wrestling. And let's get into some of that before we check up out of this joint. So, like I said, comic relief, take it how y'all want, but we definitely watching this. Shout out to Buckley, shout out to Botchamania, Matthew, everybody. Locker Room League, y'all like, share, and subscribe to your heart's content. One more until we out. Let's go.
Hello, Botchamania viewers. My name is Buckley, creator of the YouTube channel A Dose of Buckley. You might know me from that one wrestling-related video I did, the racially insensitive history of WWE. Maybe you've seen one of my annual 10 worst songs lists, or more than likely, because I'm not one of the dozens of dudes with a UK accent who talks about wrestling, you have no idea who the fuck I am. But Matthew does, and he thought I'd be just the overconfident, loudmouth prick to read to you from the book of former jewelry store owner turned wrestling promoter Todd Gordon, called Todd is God, the authorized story of how I created Extreme Championship Wrestling. Around this time, I got a call from Dennis Coraluzzo, who was a local indie promoter out of South Jersey. He was running a big card as part of a wrestling convention at a hotel in Philadelphia, which violated our gentleman's agreement to stay out of each other's territories. I'd stay in Philly, and Dennis would keep to Jersey. But since he was part of this convention here in Philly, he offered me a percentage of the take and also allowed ECW to have a match in which we could feature some of our talents. I wanted to help Dennis out on his trip into the city of brotherly love, so I approached Kerry Von Erich, the talented, though troubled star of Dallas's world-class championship wrestling, and a member of the equally troubled Von Erich wrestling dynasty. This was near the end for Kerry, and there were reports of him falling asleep face first in plates of food at restaurants. From what I'd heard, Kerry was always a little slow on the uptake anyway. Add that to any chemicals he might have been taking, and you got a recipe for a scene worthy of the Marx Brothers. I told Kerry we were going to make his appearance in the ring a surprise, so I wanted him to come out in a mask, known as a hood, to a wrestler. Okay, he said. Then, wait, why am I wearing a hood? It's a surprise, Kerry. Nancy will bring you to the ring, pull off your hood, and the crowd will pop. Oh. He wandered off wearing a blank stare while struggling to digest the concept. The show was ready to start, and Kerry was there at the appointed time. So far, so good. Hey, man, Kerry said as he approached me backstage. Why am I wearing a hood? Maybe he'd forgotten. It was an hour or so since I'd explained it after all. So I told him that he was the surprise guest that night, and that he'd come out in the mask, keeping the fans guessing until he ripped it off and revealed himself. Oh, and off he went. The show began, and I got the mask he'd be using for his match. I brought it to him, went over the match with him, and told him I'd see him out there. He stopped me. Why do you want me in the hood? I explained it again. I walked away wondering if I should just put on the damn mask myself and work the match. The time arrived for Kerry's match, and I watched my masked mystery wrestler step through the curtain, wearing a ring jacket with a glittery Kerry emblazoned on the back. I dropped my head into my hands. Maybe he'd realize it before he got to the ring and slip out of the jacket. Only the fans seated on the aisle would have seen it. I picked up my head in time to see him prancing around in the center of the ring, wearing a fucking mask with his name stitched onto his jacket. That was that. I didn't even bother to explain to him what he'd done wrong. He wouldn't have gotten it. He was far too gone. The empathy really leaps off the page, huh?
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you, Matthew, for having me on Botchamania. I've been watching this for like 10 years and always wished that I was a clumsy oaf who nearly hurt themselves so I could be in one of your videos. Glad it didn't have to come to that. I'm Buckley, and you're welcome.
We might have to watch that racially insensitive joint. But what can I say, man? Todd Gordon, founder of ECW, and at the time, you know, when he wrote that, you know, I'm sure he tried, you know, I'm sure he had the most empathy he could, right, for a guy that did what he did for a living, and yeah, folks. The Von Erich family is one of the greatest wrestling families of all time. Wrestling has more than one royal family, right? One set of wise men, and this is one of them. And I wanted to do this for a very long time. I'm glad I got the opportunity to do it right now. And if you are watching this, I really appreciate it. There will be a stream earlier at the time in which you're watching this. So if you watch the stream, thank you so much. Please continue to watch the other content on the channel as it builds up. Locker Room Reviews, y'all. The first one is in the books. I really appreciate it so much. I want to thank Sean Durkin, A24. I want to thank the cast of the Iron Claw. And I just want to give thanks. And I want to, you know, I'm happy to be a wrestling fan. I'm happy to learn about these stories, and not necessarily, you know, it's not a great thing. You're not happy when you're learning about tragedy, but these folks are heroic to us, and to some degree. And I think that stories about them and seeing how they dealt with it can provide us with some type of guidance or catharsis, right? So I just want to raise it up as much as possible. This has been the first Locker Room Review. It's me, your man, AJ Styles P, Lorenzo Pierce. I really appreciate y'all for tuning into this Locker Room Review for the Iron